What's going on, family? How y'all doing? You are here with your host, John, aka Jaye David, and you are tuned into another episode of the Cavalier Convos podcast. In today's episode, I got my brother Kenny in the building with me. What's up?
Yo.
And we got my man Sean calling in. Appreciate you being on with us, brother.
You already know. Glad to be here, y'all. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Dope, man. So this is the third of a three-part series, third episode of a three-part series, and appreciate everybody tuning in up until this point. We have an interesting, I guess, dialogue that we're going to be having today in regards to kind of where we go from here after, all the things that we've discussed and the events that we've kind of just seen over the last, I don't even know how long. It's like one big blur to me, man. But,
Yeah.
It's been a lot. But most definitely appreciate y'all listening. Before we get this thing rolling, make sure y'all go and listen to all the previous episodes. They're on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure y'all do that. Follow us online. Follow us on social media. If you could, go ahead and just type in Cavalier Convos, both on Instagram and Facebook, and you'll find us. And appreciate y'all doing that. But, yeah, let's get this thing started, man. So everything that's been happening, man, we as a community, I guess, have been through a lot. Not just in the last weeks, man, but for the last 400 years. But we'll talk about the last couple of weeks. And I guess where are we going from here, man? Where are we going from here? What are we? What's next?
See, that's the hard part, because with the methods that are being used right now, we're seeing certain sweeping changes in different places when it comes to how the police are policing. It's been primarily a lot of things that are being ridden of. Like plainclothes units, methods and tactics that are being used, and all these different things. But we still sort of get caught up with the fact that there's some kind of change when we're not really realizing we're not getting what we actually need.
Yes.
Like we need to be protected.
Yeah.
None of that actually protects us. It just means that they can't do certain things anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to ban chokeholds, that doesn't prevent from us getting shot the hell up.
Yeah, it don't prevent them from doing other forms of choking. And that's the thing that for a lot of black people, and that's like the political education. Understanding words and verbiage is very important for black people.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they didn't want us to read for such a long time.
Of course.
And when you read certain legislation and things like that, and you see all right, well, it's good that you banned all this stuff, but what is the punishment for doing these things to black people? Nothing on the books. So I don't know, man. Deshaun, what do you think, man?
I think that I think there's two levels of change that we're starting to see sweep the nation. That I don't know if it quite gets to the core of what we are really fighting for, but it is a step forward, right? So I think there's what I would call aesthetic change, things that kind of look good on the outside, things
Yep.
that kind of appeal to the eye, to the visual, right?
Yep.
We're seeing multiple cities putting Black Lives Matter and bold letters, and I'm not against it. That's great. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And there's a lot of these aesthetic things, like a lot of companies changing the looks of their boards and their executive, like what it looks like, and things like that, right? And then there's some other changes that are a little little more beneath the surface. I don't know if it gets to the root, right? It probably cuts at a limb or something or a branch, but it doesn't necessarily get to the root. So we see things like the Breonna Taylor law, which still boggles my mind, because it's okay, we've deemed this thing as illegal now, right? You can't not no more no knock injuries for police, but if we're deeming it as illegal, we still understand that the people that shot her up
Still
should be
walking around.
arrested
Free.
and should be fired, right? So that's still a problem. You know what I'm saying? So then you have these more structural things, right? Plainclothes units, as Kenny already brought up, banning the chokehold, but we still have to get to the uh, the root of the issue is systems that not we don't want. The thing is, we don't want equal representation in certain boards and certain things.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really the thing. I
That's
think
not
the
what we
thing
want.
is building our own strength and unifying our people. And there's a lot of things that are happening that, in my opinion, are going to cause our efforts to be diluted and lose a little strength. To keep it real with you, it's a lot of things that happen that are watering down the
It's
unification, the
watering.
economic
Yeah, man.
empowerment that we're looking to get. Right? It's not that we don't want these laws changed, but we also want people fired. We want people charged. We want people convicted.
In
And we're
jail.
not seeing. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing that.
No.
We're not seeing that.
And that's the thing is that I think is that they're trying. What they're doing is they're trying to see if we're gonna walk off the field early. That's what they want. That's what they're thinking. They're trying to see, how can we get them to walk off the field early, end the game early, and there needs to continue to be a push. There needs to continue. Like, this is not something that gets eradicated. It could get fixed in a month's time. You know what I mean? Like, this is not something that could get just kind of swept under the rug. Like this can't be. There's no way. Like, I'm at the point, right? This system is beyond redemption. You can't. This system, the way it is right now, you can't redeem this system the way it's structured right now. It takes literally a tearing down of the entire system, everything, in order to correct what has been done and what is continuing to be done.
I look at everything sort of like, even though our country is like younger than most, right? We still have an antiquated way of governing. So even when you sort of have to go beyond dismantling, because even once you dismantle it, you still have to replace it with something that's going to work. And we don't have that. Like, we could burn all this to the ground. It's basically just going to stay burnt. Or they're going to just try to resurrect what they already had going. But what I urge people to do is, watch for this bait and switch. But what I think is going to happen next is the power is going to get to a point, be like, damn, y'all niggas ain't got enough yet. And it's like, well, we haven't even gotten what we
haven't even
gotten what we need. It's like, I say I need water, but you give me Kool-Aid instead, and be like, well, this will keep you at least from being thirsty.
And they gave you Kool-Aid, and you haven't screwed the top off the lid yet.
Yeah. So I would just urge people to really sit down and think about what it is we actually really need and what's actually happening. Because we're sitting here talking about, it's like, we don't want to be included. We want to be able to build the same way anybody else is able to build, without encumbrances, without anything in our way, without somebody else having a head start, and all that. I don't think that we get that here, regardless of what happens. I don't think that will ever happen.
Yeah, the thing for me, and I guess, Deshaun, you could kind of comment on this, is I am not interested in changing the hearts of anybody. I'm not. That's God's job. That is God's job. I'm not trying to change the heart of a nation or of racist people, white supremacists. I'm not trying to change their heart. I just want, they could believe what they want to believe. They could think what they want to think, as long as they are not allowed to harm me or get in my way. That's what I'm concerned about. And what that takes is a change of policy. It takes a change in legislation. It takes a tipping of the scales, because, like, people always talk about, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Black people, you guys should, why can't you do it? They are able to do it. The Asians are able to do it. The Jews are able to do it. Well, people often like to put that stuff out there, but they forget that about certain things that happen in history. And they fail to acknowledge certain things in history that have happened when certain groups of people were marginalized, were oppressed. And not even for as long as our people have been oppressed. If you look in the history books and you see, well, how do places like Japan, after being bombed twice with a nuclear weapon that has not been used since in human history, there's only been 2 atomic bombs that have been used on planet Earth, and the U.S. used it twice on the same nation. So how is Japan able to build back up their economy, build back up their country, be basically the U.S. satellite as far as economy wise for the Pacific. How are they able to do that? Well, they got reparations. They got something called the
Exactly.
Marshall Plan. How was Europe able to rebuild itself after 2 world wars?
Talk about it.
How were they able to? Germany. How was Germany able to? After how were they able to do this? They had reparations.
But here's the
And
thing though.
that's the thing that gets ignored, though. You know what I mean? Like,
How does somebody else benefit from us getting reparations though? There's a benefit
mm,
for providing that help. There was a huge benefit.
Of course.
So the question is, how do they benefit by giving us reparations outside of like nigga shit? We basically give the money back to them. But just in terms of the big picture, and
Yeah,
saying,
because
making
obviously,
a decision, and when we say benefit, this is more of an immediate benefit. And there is like a quid pro quo that's documented. Like, we're going to do this, and this is how this is going to help us. We'll do this for you. This is how this is going to help for us. How would black people receiving reparations benefit those who are actually giving it to us?
that's a good question. That's a necessary answer. I really don't care about. I don't really care how they feel because they obviously didn't care how we felt, for all these centuries. Do I have an answer? It just makes America. The thing is that, and there's an issue. It's because it's not about necessarily. They use us all the time to their benefit. Us having our own systems and having our own businesses are not a hindrance to America. It's a hindrance to white supremacy because we've leveled the playing field. And when you have someone who is scared, think about this. You have someone who is scared of your existence because they're afraid of either you're going to wipe them out genetically. How do you can't. What think about that? They're not even scared of that. To be honest, I think at some point they are scared that if we were to ever be on a level playing field, we do the same thing to them. But black people don't really think like that.
I think that's a legitimate fear.
Yeah, it's a legitimate fear.
I don't think it is. I think it's paranoia.
Regardless of, but it's going to get to the point where it's like, well, how long are you going to prolong the inevitable? Because at some point, you're going to have to pay for it somehow. Karma, I'm sorry, but you reap what you sow eventually. So your grandkids or somebody is going to pay. America is going to pay for this, either writing a check or this place is going to get burnt to the ground.
I will tell you that I don't think that America will pay for what's been done to us until the world pays for what we're doing to the world. Like, that's how long it's going to take before they pay. This blue ball will probably burn because of global warming and things that just people have done to this world before America decides, or it comes back around to where they pay for us. It's not going. This world's going to burn before that happens. Basically,
I don't know.
Here's my thinking though. I think that when it comes to the whole, what will black people like? How will white supremacists or white America, upper class America, benefit from black people getting reparations? Here's the thing. I don't know if it's as much about them not knowing how they'll benefit from us as much as it is not wanting to admit, because we still have not had a president ever admit that this quote unquote great nation is built on our backs. There's no other group that reparations have been paid out to that we can say is responsible for the development of this nation. Mm-hmm. Therefore, giving those reparations, yes, I think there are certain economic benefits to the economy, the way Jews have the structure in their communities and the way Japanese have structures in their communities and Chinese communities and these other groups that have received reparations, right? We have to think about what it would mean for them to give reparations is also them admitting something that they refuse to accept for centuries because they want to uphold this image that we're a nation that's been built. We fought for it. We
Freedom.
fought for our freedom and our
Mm-hmm.
independence. And now we have it. And now the red, white, and blue stands for so much. But yet we ignore the ugliness that the entire black race has had to suffer for them to stand on our backs, for them to stand on our shoulders, for them to say this Pledge of Allegiance, for them to sing that Star Spangled Banner. It was on our backs. So for them to pay out reparations, I don't know if it's a matter of whether or not they'll benefit. It's a matter of what will they have to admit.
Admit.
Because by giving reparations, you're saying we admit that what we did to you was wrong and that this nation wouldn't be what it is without you. And that's not something they want the forefathers to be.
Because yes, that's what it comes down to, man.
And wrote that Constitution.
That's what it comes down to.
Credit to go to my great-great-grandfather. You feel me? So now they have to, given reparations admits I was wrong. And they can't say that.
They also have to admit
They're not in the space to say that yet.
that everything that they have, because there's something in their mind that has told them that all of this is because of how great they were.
Yeah,
all they did was weaponize gunpowder. Do you understand that gunpowder has been around for thousands of years? Asians use it for celebration. Mm-hmm. White people saw it and used it. Well, oh shoot, you know what I mean? Like, we could probably do some damage. We could do some damage with this. But it would actually be an admonition, because a lot of what happens is a lot of people in the white society who are either have negative things to say, well, why can't black people pull themselves up? Or even black people who think like this. Or why can't black people just do what the Asians do or the Jewish do? Or why is there so much crime in the black community? Is it because they're a violent culture? Not thinking about, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, we ain't go to nobody else's continent and rape and pillage and destroy entire civilizations. We didn't steal. We didn't feed alligators to, babies to alligators. We didn't do any Tuskegee experiments or concentration camps or whole total genocides of nations or of indigenous populations. We haven't destroyed the world oceans and beaches. What are you talking about? Culture of violence? What do you mean? Like, how can you even? You could go like that's not even. I'm missing things. You know what I'm saying? So it's more so of a thing that, like, it's the same way black people have like an inferiority complex. White people have a superiority complex.
I'm glad you said that.
Where their esteem of themselves is over. They have an over esteem of themselves of what they've accomplished.
Yeah.
So like when you see it, so much to the fact that they go to other continents and other countries, and their artifacts, they chop noses off them. They steal artifacts and hide them in Vaticans. They take books out of holy scriptures and keep them, but they keep them hid. Like it's a complex. It's a thing that they do. Like I mean, and I want to say this. I don't hate white people at all. Like I don't. Like I don't have. And hate takes energy.
It does.
And I don't have the energy. Like I got too much to build over here, man, for black people to be focused on hating anybody from any other race. I will work with anybody from any race. I don't have a problem with that at all. As long as your intentions are pure and you really want to do the right thing, I don't mind working with anybody. But just like how if I come to a certain space trying to help, another ethnic group, they're going to check me out. And we should be doing the same thing, because there's a lot of groups, right? Especially like, and this is a thing that happened with, I believe, was it Minnesota Freedom Fund. Did y'all hear about that?
I did.
Yeah, they were, I guess they were doing work in Minnesota in regards to bailing out protesters and things like that.
Yeah.
Received millions and millions of dollars, right? Millions of dollars. And when the audit came back, because people were asking, because, you guys got a lot of money, I think it was like 3.2 million. I'm not sure. I think it was more than that, to be honest, man. They only spent 200,000 of the millions in donations as far as bailouts.
So here's the question about that: was there anybody left in jail though?
I'm pretty sure there was. I mean, there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. If $200,000 was spent,
There's a lot of people
it's
out
like
there.
it's kind of stupid to think that you might get away with something when there's a bunch of people still in jail. Like, who did you help?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with also like Black Lives Matter, same thing, and a lot of people don't know, and that's why I posted posted something on my IG story. I mean, it was in regards to Black Lives Matter. I said I support the phrase, I support the idea of Black Lives Matter, but I will never support the organization Black Lives Matter. Reason why is because, one, it was started by George Soros, who is hand in hand with the Democratic Party. When you go to donate money to Black Lives Matter, it takes you to actblue.com. ActBlue is a lobbyist group.
Right, for Democrats.
For the Democrats. If you look at where ActBlue has sent a majority of their funds, you got Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders on there, Hillary Clinton, millions of dollars to them. And also, like, when you look at the mission statement for Black Lives Matter, it's not for black people. It uses the phrase, but if you see, it has, and this is the thing with words, black people, and you got to pay attention to the words, marginalized people, minorities, people of color, all disenfranchised people, right? Women's rights, all these different intersectionality terms, things that don't do, because all that money that they're raising, how much of that is actually getting back to the people on the street?
Right.
Like, that's a lot of money they raise, man. I like the energy or whatever, and all that is dope, but after protesting, we need things for our community.
And that's why people got to do research. They got to do research. My wife and I, we were trying to, for those that don't know, we have our own clothing line, Free the Souls, LLC, little plug. But, Free the Souls clothing, we went during when all of this started happening, a lot of people were hitting us up like, hey, are y'all doing donations? Are y'all looking? And we were looking for organizations, but we weren't just jumping into supporting everything.
Yeah.
You got to know who started certain things. You got to know whose hand is in the pot with certain things. There's a lot of like firewalls that get, that money is going to before it even goes to the source that you think you're investing in, or not investing, but helping out and supporting.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta support more of the like
grassroots
organizations. You know what I mean? Organizations that are in your community, that are promised money from assembly people and council people, and they never see those checks. Those are the people you gotta really like support, because those are the ones that are going to every meeting, going to the town halls, going up to Albany. They need the funds when they're going out to protest and fly out to other cities. They're going on their own dollar. Like, those are the types of organizations, not these nationally recognized.
Corporate.
There's no disrespect to these people, but these people that have too many corporate ties
Deshaun,
and corporate campaigns, yeah.
think about this. Like, black people, all of us really need to think about this. These corporations give money to politicians, legislators, on both sides.
Yep.
The people who are responsible for your oppression.
Absolutely.
Those same corporations are the ones funding these organizations that y'all are giving all this money to. Do you think black liberation, seriously, think about it. Do you really think black liberation is going to come from white dollars? Please. Any logical person is going to, if you really think about it, yeah, you know what I mean? Not to say that there's not white people that can help. I think that, of course, I think that's true. I'm not saying that it's not true.
Yeah, for
sure,
for sure.
If you think liberation is going to come through that way, no. No, it's not coming that way. Not when these same companies profit off the prison industrial complex.
It's too much. when people,
Can't
it's
serve
hard
two
to make a
masters.
righteous it's hard to make a righteous decision. And when I say righteous, I want to remove like the religiosity behind it. When I say righteous, I mean pure hearted. I mean I just mean like something that benefits people and is not self-serving.
Self-serving. Yep.
It's hard to make righteous decisions when you are influenced and you are funded by outside people. Like no matter what you do, like let's think of a kid like with their that lives with their parents, right? And your parents they pay your car note or whatever, or they put a roof over your head or whatever, your gadgets, cell phone bill, whatever. You're gonna have moments where you're gonna want to be disobedient and do this and dishonor your parents. I want to go here when they told me to go there. They told me to go left. I want to go right. Every kid's gonna have that moment. The reason a kid always second guesses it, it's not because there's just a natural honor for their parent, but it's because there's a tie, because there's a connection there. Because like, all right, wait, dang, I might lose this cell phone because I
Mm-hmm.
don't pay my own bill. There's like a connection that doesn't just happen in the household. You second guess your decisions when people why,
When you got all those
you
hands in the
can't just
pot,
walk
yeah.
away. Yeah, like yeah, divorce rates are high in America, but a reason a lot of people are like, I don't mean no sense to get married because if I want to get divorced, it's harder to walk out of. It's harder to walk out of. It costs money. When money is connected, it's hard to make pure decisions. So these corporations that are funding and funneling these so-called organizations that are for the people. It's like, nah, man, we got to do more research. We got to do more collaboration. We got to do more face to face sit downs. Walk into these offices, walk into your assemblyman's office, walk into your councilman's office, get lists of organizations and 501c3s in your surrounding areas. Go visit them, challenge them, talk to them, ask questions. Let them come do a group at your church or at your block association or whatever meetings. Like talk to these people. These are the people that would benefit from the money, not these corporations that got 1,000 hands in the pot. You know what I'm saying?
Kenny, go ahead, bro.
Let's put something in perspective just for people who are listening. Most of what we ask for, just as far as black people in general in this country, is for white people to save us.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about legislation changing, right?
Yeah.
Considering who is in the legislature, we're just asking for white people to help us, which is essentially is never going to happen.
Yeah, there's a way you can do it, but I agree with what you're saying, because there's a difference between asking and making demands, right? Because and this goes back to, and like I don't want to talk because we talked about that a lot the last episode, but it goes back to voting. It's like we're not asking any politician to do anything. We are telling them you're gonna do this, or we're not voting for you. And if you don't do it, good luck for the rest of your political career. Or you better run, because the thing is that, and what I like, and this is the one thing I do like about what's happened, everybody is revealing what they believe and who they are. The racists are coming out, the closet racists are coming out, the scared Negroes are coming out, the coons are coming out, the people about empowerment are coming out. Everybody is revealing the confused black people are coming out. Oh, you know what I mean? Everything is coming to light right now. So people are exposing their true self, their true sentiments, what they really believe and what they really stand for. So it's an opportunity, because I always have to remind myself of this too. All the black people ain't gonna make it, man. They not. Ain't not. It's sad. You're gonna be some people are gonna be your family members, man.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are gonna be who are in your own house, people that you grew up with. It's just the sad reality. Everybody ain't gonna make it. Everybody's not gonna get to see Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's gonna make it. And I constantly, for myself, have to get comfortable with that. I'm gonna try to, sound the alarm. I'm gonna try to, that's why we have this podcast. That's why we bring the brothers on. That's why we do what we do. That's why we try to spread the word, because, there's people who may not have heard something like this before and who are going to hear it, and they're going to, something's going to trigger in their mind. And then some people's going to hear it and be like, yo, what them dudes talking about, man? That's that pro-black stuff. Y'all crazy, man. I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's fine. It's not a problem. But everybody's not going to make it. And I have to, like, literally, like, because I will go insane if I don't come to that realization that, like, yo, not every black person going to make it, man. But we got to do the work. We got to do our work. This is our work right now. Like, this is just one way that we're trying to contribute to the to the revolution. Like, I guess whatever you want to call it, but this is our way of contributing to that because people are looking for answers, and if they happen to stumble on this podcast, there's some answers here. There's some dialogue here that's constructive, that's actually getting to the root of the problem and trying to find a way to grab us up out of it.
Yeah,
You realize?
I would say this, man. I think, like, to add to that, Tupac said it like this. Shout out to Tupac, rest in peace.
Happy birthday.
Today he would have been 49, man. And I would say this. One thing he said in an interview a couple decades ago is that somebody has to lay the tracks, and in order for this railroad or in order for this train to get across, there has to be somebody that lays the tracks, and that person that lays the track might get electrocuted. They might die. They might get tired or lose a hand in the labor. But at least we know the people that come after us will get across. You know what I mean? And, like, podcasts like these, discussions like these are necessary because, we might get some scrutiny for our position, our pro-black position. We might get some scrutiny for our political views. We might get some scrutiny for calling out some of these corporations that say they're for the cause, but they're not really when you really do some research, or calling out politicians and holding them accountable. There will be feedback and lashback, right? But hey, we'll take that because we know our sons, our daughters, our generation after us, our grands, if God spares us and allows that to come to fruition, they had to be able to look back and say, who did something so that there's something we won't have to keep starting from one. Like, my daughters, man, they 5 and 3. They can't grow up starting from one. I started from that. That can't be the reality for every child of color. That's why I hate when you hear the references about, black people are coming up. Jay-Z's a billionaire. Kanye's a billionaire. Oprah's a billionaire. My man that paid the student loans for the Morehouse grads, he's a billionaire. You know what I mean? I hate to hear those references because you know what the commonality when you look at those people's histories is that they all have this "I came from nothing" story. That should not be for every black person.
Nah, that can't be every black person.
That can't be, because that means that we're having to reinvent the wheel too often. It has to be something that they just inherit, or that a generation that finally comes inherits because somebody laid their life down or invested their work and their life mission to ensuring black people have equity in this country and can build and can collaborate without having to worry about white supremacists suppressing our efforts. There has to be a generation that can say, yo, I became a billionaire, or I grew into this because the business was handed down and I learned the trade from my dad. I learned it from my mom and they signed it over to me. Or I inherited this. Or this was invested and left for me. Not, I was in the street selling drugs. I was raped. I was homeless, living in my car like Tyler Perry. Like, everybody's story can't be that when they're black and successful. Like, it can't be, bro. Tyler Perry lived in his car and was homeless. Kanye lived in his car and was homeless. Jay-Z sold drugs. Oprah was homeless and was molested. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yo,
You know what I'm saying?
Yo.
I'm not taking us left. I just had to get that out.
y'all realize, though, that we've seen this show. We've seen it over and over. Our parents have seen it more than we have, and our grandparents have seen this show. It's literally a rerun. The year is different, and there were, precursors in terms of certain changes that were made before we were born. And we're going to see this show again because what we keep not doing is something different. We keep doing the same thing, and then we keep allowing the government or the power to continue to do the same thing. It's just give us a few crumbs, in terms of change,
Yeah, man.
so that they can continue to do the same things in the first place. So let's not even sit here and act like, for a lot of other people who feel like this is new, it's like police
This
brutality.
ain't new, man.
But like police brutality is sort of this new thing. Like people were getting killed in worse ways. Like this is not new. We're verbatim coming out of our mouths are literally the same things that were coming out of people's mouths in the 60s, that were coming out of people's mouths in the 40s and the 30s, that were coming out of people's mouths prior to the 1900 after slaves were free. What we keep not doing is something different. We haven't done anything different. And we've been accepting what we would consider progression. We keep accepting it like we've accomplished something. We haven't. They've given us a little bit by a little bit by a little bit by a little bit. Every year since slavery's been over, a little bit by a little bit, and none of it is even remotely enough.
Mm-hmm.
Verbiage is important. I don't think that any of us really, really look at what someone is saying to us in terms of what we're receiving or what we're getting. I think that's probably a bigger point than we actually realize, because that's where our acceptance comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Because, like, for example, when black people see people of color, we assume they're talking about us.
right.
That is not the case.
Nope.
Black people are not people of color. Our experience is very, very different than any other minority. We're not just like any other minority. We're very, very different. We are a distinct group of people in this country.
You realize how profound it is that right now in 2020, I'm about to be a 40-year-old man on Thursday, and I can tell you how I got here. One event, slavery. Like, do you realize how profound it is that after this many years, I can tell you the only reason that I'm in this location right now is because of one thing. That's crazy. Like, that is crazy.
That's wild.
To think that, as you know, in terms of how I grew up
You didn't
in
migrate here.
and just like how I grew up and all these different things, and you and I have grown up differently and all this other stuff, we still got here the same way. One event, literally one thing, is the only reason that I'm sitting behind this mic right now, as opposed to being somewhere else in the world. And that's bananas. For anyone to dismiss anything when it comes to any of our pain, for anyone to dismiss any of it, doesn't matter what it is, in terms of our pain, think about one thing. The only reason that we're even having this conversation, me and you and this white person, the only reason we're even having this conversation is because slavery brought me here. That's the one reason. So to dismiss any of my pain, like any of it?
Yeah, and that's my biggest issue, because and this is also a problem I have with black people. And I another thing I posted on Facebook, I said, there's a difference with having an experience as a black person and being an expert on race. Non-black people, when you talk to a black person, please understand that not every black person who speaks about their experience are talking from an expert opinion on race. They're talking about their experience. So don't use some coon's experience as a way to justify your biases and your racism. That's the most egregious and disgusting thing, because you have history books. You see what's going on. I don't believe. We're not excused. There needs to be a time. Black people, stop excusing racist behavior as just ignorance or not knowing or not understanding. Everybody knows what the hell's going on. Everybody knows. Anybody who pretends that they don't know is complicit and is no better than a white supremacist, black or white. If you believe any of that garbage or this nonsense, like people like Candace Owens or any of these clowns like Ben Carson or any of these other coons out here.
You don't need to say their names.
I'm dead serious. Any white person co-signing that kind of nonsense, you are no different than a white supremacist. Just because a black person says it doesn't make it true.
I wouldn't even say their names.
Absolutely.
No, you have to, but that's the thing. We need to call out garbage in our community, right? So like what's on Twitter right now is trending because that young lady, the African sister, she was he murdered or whatever? What, Deshaun, you know what happened with that?
Yeah, she was found dead. And then there's like a trace, or there's like a history of like, I don't know if they're text messages or like disturbing videos that are like showing a trace of like proof that some man, a black man, had molested
Yes,
her,
yes.
asked her for a ride or something. I told her to get in his car or something to that nature, and I took her with him and molested and killed her. It hasn't been proven that it was this person, but they're saying like there's like a mysterious trail of proof that leads or points to this black man.
Yeah.
Who
So
also molested and killed a
in regards to
75-year-old
that,
woman, I believe.
yeah. In regards to that, and then I saw a video of some dudes throw some black girl in the trash. Understand, all you people saying black men need to stop abusing black women. Those aren't black men.
Right. Don't.
Those are not black men.
Broad brush.
Those aren't black men. I don't care what genitalia. I don't care what gender they. Black men don't do that. Though, and that's the thing with the code of contact, because when we have a code of conduct, we understand how it, and this is the thing, like, our people are so colonialized, right? And we're so quick to paint the brush. Black on black crime is an example. People make a big fuss about this. Those are not black people if they kill other black people. I don't consider them black people. Those are Negropeans.
They feed it into their
They're
system.
not, they're colonialized. They're not Africans. They're not black people. We need to make the distinction. Just like other groups have their outcast, they have their outcast. Do you think the certain white people view every white person the same? That conducts themselves in a behavior that is not conducive to what they want their culture to represent? Asian, Jews, do you think that's the case? Yeah, it's the case. They know that's not a representation of their culture, but for black people, sometimes when one person, one coon, one clown does something that is destructive to the black community, we automatically do what our white supremacist chip in our mind tells us to do. All black people got to stop doing this, or all black people got to stop killing. All black people, we got to stop robbing. We got to stop stealing
Like
from
it's
each
all
other.
of us.
You can't
Right.
change. You can't change them people if they're gonna do that anyway.
You know what's crazy? It just how people just don't really think about how small we are. We're placed in communities so that something like that can run rampant.
Exactly.
And the crazy part about it is there is still no amount of violence that we can do to each other that compares to the amount of violence that's done by people who aren't black to us. Those numbers pale in comparison. So you want to talk about black on black crime. It was like, well, there's only a few of us, and there's a very small percentage of us who are even participating in black on black crime. But let's just talk about how much white on black crime there is. You want to do that? How about let's do that? We'll talk about white on black
Or
crime.
what we call white collar crime.
They don't even think black people are capable of that.
White collar crime. Nobody talks about white collar crime in the same way you talk about scamming or drug dealing.
Come on.
If you want to find the most drugs in America, go to Wall Street.
Come on.
Go to Wall Street, and you will find the most drugs you ever seen in your life.
You will find pound.
You will find plenty of drugs on Wall Street, and ain't nobody stopping and frisking anybody up there.
Nope.
So that's what I'm saying. This colonialized, you have to, and then you black people, y'all got to check yourselves when you start getting that itch to, you start getting that itch in there and start feeding into that because you gotta because you've been programmed.
Right.
The media, that's why I tell people, turn CNN off. Turn Fox News, turn that garbage off. The only reason you should be watching it is to know what your enemy is doing.
This is what I want everybody listening to do, especially for those who think they aren't programmed. I want you to ask yourself one question and then answer it, and then tell me or anybody else if you're not programmed. If someone mentions anything to you that's black, you tell me for yourself, do you consider whatever that is that they're talking about that's black as not quite that good? It doesn't matter if it's a business. It doesn't matter if it's something academic. It doesn't matter what it is. But if something somebody mentions that they're going to give to you that's black, you, for yourself, think about, do you automatically assume that it's not as good because it's black? And I can guarantee you, for anyone who thinks that they are not programmed, just like most of us, that knee-jerk reaction is going to be that it's not as good. You may think about it after that and kind of get out of your own way, but a knee-jerk reaction from anything that's black is going to produce this negative connotation on whatever it surrounds. We are programmed. We were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And the sooner that you realize it, the sooner that those knee-jerk reactions can change. And that goes with everything. That goes with socializing. That goes with business and economics. That goes in academics. It goes with everything. So if you think you're not programmed, think again. And start to deprogram yourself so that knee-jerk reaction doesn't automatically, for a black person, create a negative connotation on whatever it surrounds.
There's a brainwashing. You need a brainwashing because you've been brainwashed. It's a bar, right? But you need a brainwash. You need to clean your mind. You have a colonialized mind. That's the best way I could describe it. You have a mind that is accepted your oppression like it's normal. This is the truth, and I want Deshaun to just comment on this. We have a lot of people in our community who are not looking to dismantle white supremacy. They are looking for a comfortable spot within white supremacy. Case in point, don't go out there protesting, you know. Well, tone it down a little bit, you know. You don't want to seem too uppity. You have people, because even I talked to my high school coach yesterday, actually, and he went by a march and he told all the people, he said, do y'all realize that y'all are marching for the same exact things I was marching for? I'm 70 years old right now.
Exactly.
And we're marching, and then we're going to be back here in 6 months because y'all don't know how to stay focused.
My mom said the same thing. She said, we said literally the same thing. She said, I still ain't happy. It's 2020. My mom will be 69 years. She'll be 69 this year. She said, we said the exact same thing when I was younger than you. We said the exact same thing, and I still ain't happy.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
What are we really asking for?
I mean, it's sick. It's sick because everything gets diluted, man. Everything once we get and be honest, I know there's a lot of black people out there who are really serious, and it's a few of us, but there's enough of us to get it done. Because most people are followers anyway. That's most people are followers. Because once we get what we need to get together, once the intelligent black society gets together and builds and does what we're supposed to do, the rest of them will follow and fall in line. It just takes a small group of leaders. It's enough. It's just, are we gonna not get tired, from seeing? That's why, like, sometimes I gotta turn y'all off. Like some of the stuff that y'all, some people that are, no disrespect, like, because I get it. Everybody's knowledge base is different. Everybody's understanding level is different. But a lot of people are people. Jane Elliott and Tim Wise articulate racism, but they are saying the same things a lot of other black people who have been saying, and y'all don't want to listen to them because they were black. Automatically. Like, I find it, and it's just, but that's, once again, the same thing that you're saying, Kenny.
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
What is Jane Elliott and Tim Wise saying? Yes, they articulated great, but black people have been, conscious black society has been telling y'all this for centuries, but y'all don't want to listen to it. I'm like, a white person gets up and articulates racism, and everybody wants to post that and talk about that, but Malcolm been telling y'all for years.
Yeah.
Kwame Ture been telling y'all for years. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing been telling y'all for years. For years, for decades. John Henry
Absolutely.
Clark been telling y'all for years.
Absolutely.
For decades. And y'all didn't want to listen to that. But Jane Elliott gets up and says the same thing, and y'all run with it. Why? Like Kenny's saying. If it's black, it ain't, well, you know, I mean, if a black person say it, I mean, but, you know, being that, you know, Jane Elliott and Tim Wise say, well, you know, yeah, I agree with that. And it's programming. You're programmed, even in those, like, just simple things like that, because it's just crazy.
I was gonna speak to just this idea that like a lot of black people, you mentioned it, you just want kind of, they want to be comfortable, right? They want a level of comfort personally or for their families, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's good enough. We've won, we've overcome. Um, and I think I've been at a lot of these marches, man. I've been at a lot of these marches recently because I'm, as y'all know, I'm a rapper. I do spoken word as well. So I've actually been going. A lot of people ask me to speak, but also perform and things like that. And it's been great. One thing that I can say that I asked my dad, because one march I went to with my father actually, which was like really monumental for me personally, like just to march hand in hand with my dad. It was kind of heartbreaking because he was born in the 60s. So it was like, wow, my dad, who was born in the 60s, was coming up while a lot of this stuff was happening, was raised in a decade that Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and Martin Luther King all were assassinated.
Everybody was assassinated in the 60s.
And yet, right? And Kennedy, and right? And then these decades later, 5+ decades later, here it is, he's marching with his son, right? And it was heartbreaking, but also encouraging, because one of the things that we talked about that was different, and I don't think I'm necessarily pushing back on your point, Kenny. I think I'm adding a level of depth that I think gets overlooked, and I could be wrong. But he said when we would leave these marches, we would just leave and go home. So the thing about you and your generation is when the march is over, y'all were staying and say, okay, well, can we jump on the call? Yo, what's your IG? Yo, can we connect? Yo, can we meet? When's the next time we can talk? Yo, you down to get on a Zoom? Let's start planning. Now, a lot of people have their own agendas and different things are like all over the place. But I think the slight difference that we see with this generation that I would actually say, once again, I think time will determine whether I'm wrong or right. In the past, I think the things that they thought they wanted, they got, but didn't realize it wasn't what
It wasn't
they thought
enough,
it would
man.
be. You know what I mean? So let's talk about slaves that revolted and we're fighting for our freedom, and then they got that freedom, and it's like, I thought freedom would look different. I didn't realize we'd be this crippled economically when we got free, right? You could fast forward, go forward to civil rights. Oh, we want integration. And then when you got integrated, you realize we were at such a disadvantage because they've been in that system, and integration only causes us to comply with the system that's not designed for us.
Mm-hmm.
So now if our goal is integration and we did it to desegregate, and then we get it and it's like, oh, it doesn't look like what I thought it looked like. I think now the slight difference that I see is that the thing that I think we want, or at least black intellectuals like us and people that are learned and that study and that are still trying to develop ourselves, we actually are realizing, yo, let's pull back the mask, let's pull back the covers, and let's start exposing this fake idea of equality. Let's expose this fake idea of equality. I think in previous generations, a lot of the efforts were towards goals that seemed lofty, but when you got them, didn't realize it. There were still loopholes. You know what I mean? Like even something small, like you brought it up, Kenny. Like, yo, the plainclothes law that just passed in New York, and other bills that were passed, like the no chokehold, and it's like, but
okay, thank you.
There, right? Like,
appreciate it. Okay.
This loophole, and I can say, well, I actually want this as well. You know what I mean? And I think that's the slight difference. There were a few people, like a handful of people, that could read into legislation and read into constitutions and could understand it and dissect it. But I don't know if it was in the numbers that we're seeing now. That is what I would say is a slight difference. Like, I think the things we are going after aren't as lofty. They're more like direct. Like it's like it's like I don't just want freedom. I ain't just trying to overcome. I want to take this amount of money. I want to reallocate it into this. I want to put it here, put it here. I want to take this loan. I want to restructure it because there's a loophole that does not cover violence or brutality against black people. I want to take, like, there are things that we're dissecting that I don't think the system is ready for. And as long as we don't get fatigued, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
We cannot
I'm scared of
get
that.
fatigued.
I'm scared
And
of
I
that, the
think
fatigue.
that's the slight difference with what the previous generations have marched for. What they thought they wanted, they didn't realize when they got it, it actually wasn't what they thought it would be. You know what I'm saying? So we got to keep learning and developing, you know?
Perfect example. Within the past couple of days, once again, a group received legislation that prevents companies from discriminating against them.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. There will be more groups because there's no legislation that simply says that you can't discriminate. What the law does is they try to separate everything into protected groups when those protected groups don't cover everything. They don't cover everything. And then why is there not any legislation that just says you can't discriminate? It's because it's a very simple concept.
Right.
It's a very, very simple concept. It means prior to a couple of days ago, it was okay for a company not to hire you because they knew of your sexual orientation. In 2020.
But think about that too. And this is what I always get to. And illegals too. There's something for illegals in there too. But this is what I get at when people tell me, well, you can't pass legislation just for black people. Shut up. Yes, you can.
Do it.
You can.
Do
You can.
it.
You can.
They do it all the time.
They do. I mean, they do it for everybody else. People. But that's once again, you have black people. You're brainwashed. You're brainwashed.
They don't get it. It's like it leaves discrimination on the table to continuously pass legislation that protects a certain group because it doesn't include everything. It just leaves discrimination on the table. Mm-hmm. So you can say that you can't, introduce some legislation that says you can't do this against black people, and then some other legislation that says you can't do this against somebody else or whatever it is. But the bottom line is there is no legislation that just simply says that you can't discriminate. There isn't any legislation that says that you can't fucking shoot somebody in the back. There's no legislation that says that you cannot murder somebody as a police officer.
They won't put that in because but that's the thing with the words, man. They've mastered the art of wording things a particular way to where it leaves leeway. That's why, what is the court systems are a perfect example.
Yo,
these plea bills,
when they write them,
Jesus.
These bills are like
pages
books.
Yeah,
it's not that hard, but they make it that way because if there's 1,800 pages in that bill, there's 1,800 loopholes too. Mm-hmm. There's a way to get around it because you just don't have a simple rule that governs a very simple concept.
Oof. Preach, bro.
And a lot of it affects us as black people. A lot of it affects people coming to this country. A lot of it affects people in poverty. Not at a certain economic level, but at the end of the day, the ones that it doesn't really affect are white men. Mm-hmm. And guess who wrote those laws?
White men. Because it's not just a simple. It's because that's why I said you could ban chokeholds, you could ban no-knock drug searches, you could ban all that stuff, but if there's no punishment to enforce it, that's the key in any legislation. Not that it's not legal or not legal. Allowed. Because I give you an example, right? In California, right, a law where you can't operate if you don't have 20% women on your executive board. Right? Just something simple like that, right?
Oh, it's higher than... Yeah, no, you're right. It's 5. There has to be at least 2. Yeah, 20%.
Yeah. So
40.
Yeah, whatever, right? But that's kind of how that rolls. But like just certain things like that, I think are very like, important for people to understand. Like it's not, you got to continue to push the envelope, not just like, we got these laws or they did this or put this stuff in the books and we good now. Nah, that's not it. There's more work to do. I want to go over this real quick because I know, Deshaun, you got to run. I listened to a brother named Jason Black. His YouTube is actually called The Black Authority. But he had on a show, I think it was Saturday, I believe. He went over what are black people's demands, right? And I want to kind of go over this real quick. I'm going to just preface it, but if anybody who's listening wants that information, please, hit me up and I'll most definitely send it to you. But what are black people's demands, especially going into an election season? All right, the first thing here, and I'm going to just kind of go this real quick. The main point is reparations across the board. So it's not just something simple, obviously, as writing a check. Right? It's that, that's part of it, but it's not the end of it. It's just the start, right? The first point, right, and I'll just kind of go through this real quick. The agenda must address black people and only black people. You cannot group this in. Joe Biden coming, well, I'll look at reparations if Native Americans are included. Well, good luck, Joe Biden, beating Trump, right? So, like, stuff like that, right? You know what I mean? So, right, you got the agenda must address black people and only black people. Number 2, black society top priority is economic empowerment. Top priority, right? Like there should be because, give you an example, Wall Street was built on slavery. All those big banks.
Yep.
All of them, literally all of them.
About it.
All those big banks are, literally all of them, are results of slave trade, right? Wall Street wouldn't exist without the slave trade. Number 3 is, right, make dismantling of systematic white supremacy public policy. He gave the example in regards to Nazi Germany. You see how in our country, for example, we got statues of Christopher Columbus, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, the rapist, Thomas Jefferson. We got statues of all these different terrorists, is what they're called. That's what they are. Like they came here and they raped and pillaged everything that they tortured. They committed war crimes, human rights violations. You go to Germany, even though in Germany, right, like the Nazis are responsible for a lot of the ingenuity in that country. Like a lot of the ingenuity, like as far as the automobiles and different things like that. The reason why Germany is such a really good economic, one of the better, because Europe's economy right now is terrible. But Germany's still been able to somewhat thrive and be stable despite the rest of the European Union being in shambles economically. Why? Because of the ingenuity that during that time of the Nazis that happened. But you don't see statues of Hitler, running around. You don't see statues and posters and portraits of the Nazis, even though they contributed to that society being what it is economically. You don't see those statues running around, but you come to America and you see statues of all these rapists and all these things. That's trauma. That's traumatizing, man. You get that crap up off the freaking get all that stuff out of there.
Bro, you preaching,
right?
son.
You know what I mean? And like that's like he made a really good point in regards to like get this crap like that should not be there. Like you don't see that stuff hanging around, so you don't see that as a part of German culture or German history as something they celebrate or remember. So that shouldn't be a part of American history either. Number 4 is white supremacists and police violence is a human rights violation. I had been saying this for a minute. Like, I don't care
Absolutely.
about it. Needs to be.
Cosign.
Anytime a police officer or white supremacist kills an unarmed black person and you could prove that that person is affiliated with any type of white supremacist propaganda or group in any way, whether it be online, social media.
Upgrade those charges to hate crime.
Upgrade the charge to hate crime. Upgrade that charge to hate crime, human rights violation. Number 5, schools can no longer be weaponized against black children. Basically, we need to teach our own kids, or we need to have in our public schools black teachers. There should no longer be white teachers in mass teaching black kids, because by the time that school to prison pipeline is a real thing.
Yes, it is.
It's talked about. Why? Because it's social engineering. Just like we're talking about with that with you were making a reference, Kenny, in regards to that you've been programmed. Where do you think that starts at? Starts in school. I get actually a question. Can y'all name me any non-black teacher that teach y'all throughout grades 1 through 12 that you felt actually cared about you and your education?
Non-black.
Non-black that truly cared about you, your education, you being educated. If you have, that's cool. I can't think of any.
One.
Well, I can, but for me, it's different because my mom was a principal. Mm-hmm. So I get to high school. These teachers have been around me.
Yeah, okay.
It's a little different.
Makes it, yeah. My dad was the principal. I didn't go to his school, but I didn't have any non-black teacher in the entire time that I was in high school, middle school, grade level, that I felt truly cared about me being a successful person outside in the real world. And it's true. The schools are weaponized against black children. You can't tell me it's not. How many kids? I coached college basketball for 5 years, man. And a lot of the kids I came across, it's not they were dumb kids. They can remember plays. They can remember all types of stuff. They can remember whole rap albums. So it wasn't an idea of just they just weren't smart enough or couldn't remember nothing. It just was there was no confidence instilled in them as children that they could actually amount to anything or be any sort of critical thinker in real life. So, yes, the schools are most definitely weaponized. Let's talk about this here. Number 6, remove the prisons, monuments, and physical institutions of white supremacy. So, right, this is a good one. You said that black people pay taxes, right? And our dollars are used to fund these freaking monuments that are of people that once enslaved our ancestors. So you gotta say you go to maybe University of Texas or whatever, or someplace like that, and you got a building named after Robert E. Lee or Stonewall Jackson or one of these guys, and your tax dollars are literally going to upholding and the preservation of monuments and museums of people who terrorized your ancestors. Insanity. All right, 20% of public and private contracts should be reserved for black businesses. This is a good one because of the fact that a lot of especially in the either real estate or just infrastructure, building, bridges, things like that. Like how many black-owned contractors, are getting those opportunities, especially in these major cities where black people are densely populated. Places like New York City, LA, Dallas, Chicago. The Midwest, right?
Like the whole thing.
Think about that. So for me, it's just that is very, very important in regards to that those things should be talked about because if say we are 13, 14, 50% of the population, then we should have 15% of the contracts that in those major cities. If black people are 40 or 30% of the population in Brooklyn or Queens or New York City or whatever, then contracts, that's equality. You can't tell me that, there aren't any qualified black contractors or businesses that you can give, these opportunities to. So these are just simple things right there. Obviously we're not going to dive deep into it, but I'd rather let y'all listen to his
because I wanted to
rendition of it. But I think that certain things like that, but most definitely the economic part. And yes, not just writing a check, yes. I'm not necessarily, my parents are from the Caribbean, so I'm not a descendant of American slavery. But I do believe black people, and I will fight for black people in this country to get reparations because that's access to capital that people that I know personally have. And that's how things usually work, in business. Somebody has a deal, somebody has capital. Think about, that's how things work, right? So I'm a proponent, and then don't tell me the government can't pay for it because I just watched in 3 weeks the government
pull for that money from under the couch.
$10 trillion to bail out Wall Street, and nobody did a study. $10
trillion out of nowhere.
Nobody did a vote. Nobody did none of that. They just said, all right, we got to keep the stock market booming, and as it is, meanwhile 40 million people out of work, and stock market are damn near all-time highs. How does that work? Well, shoot, if the debt is already at 24, what is 30 trillion? What's 34 trillion? Hey, you might as well just keep going, right?
I have a big what if. sort of, I don't even want to call it like a conspiracy, but a big what if. So the people who own this land, as a way of appeasing who was left, because they killed almost all of them off, gave them sovereign land. They are out of the jurisdiction of the American government on those lands where they are, right? And there's a lot that goes into deciding whether or not someone would be able to have sovereign land. But what if, big what if black people started buying land that all was next to each other and buying it up and buying it up? So not just necessarily you're just buying a parcel of land here and then somebody's buying a parcel of land somewhere else,
Yeah.
like this, like what normally happens. But what if we were buying a bunch of land that all essentially could make a large piece of land? A large, I mean, we're talking, even larger than the size of a large county or a portion of a state. Now, this is nothing that would happen, overnight or anything like that. But what if quietly that would something that we were doing? And once you buy enough land, especially once you get outside the jurisdictions of smaller governments, so you buy enough land to where that land is amasses over a county, then
you can. Yeah.
So
I know what you're saying.
You're starting to legally buy land that is outside the purview of a specific level of government because of the amount of land that you have.
Yeah, you would have to go to Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, places like that. You'd have to go basically to the Midwest for the most part, and then parts probably down south. But it's possible. I would encourage, and that's something. I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I think that black people should do that. I think black people should go and, like, if you got 10 friends, you should go freaking off 10 of y'all go live in the same neighborhood.
That and to be honest, because that was mentioned in an earlier one, that is, to be honest, is a really good start. Because here's why. In these communities or in these neighborhoods, you have also, in a lot of cases, you have HOAs. Mm-hmm. So if enough of you decide to buy homes in a particular area, you can test for yourself, because of the amount of y'all that are there, what kind of changes there are and where you start to have control. Now, what if you start to do the same kind of thing in areas that actually occupy a good portion of, let's just say, maybe a state, right? And even without seeking to go to the sovereign land route, if you own enough land, you can at least have borders restructured so that you can introduce smaller governments in different areas. In the same way, if somebody redevelops an area enough, they will end up being allowed to call that area something and end up having their own city government, which is a lot easier in terms of, it's a lot easier than actually trying to get sovereign land. But if you bought enough and you occupy enough area, and in that area, those businesses that come to that area are thriving, the next step is a government seat. And you actually start to form black cities, black counties, or even larger areas. It's actually pretty realistic.
It is realistic.
As long as somebody doesn't get in your way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think that is very realistic, and like I said, it's up to Black Intelligence Society at the end of the day, because I think I think it's possible. I think it's just a matter of focus and people really coming together and being, and not
unity,
and cleaning your mind, cleansing your mind from that whitewashing, and not, thinking about we can't do that. No, you can do it, and we could do whatever we want. We could get done whatever we need to get done. And I just believe that, hey man, now's the time, man. If you're awake, if you're conscious right now, if you see what's going on, if you want to really change things in the community, in our community, I mean, you listen to this podcast, I'm pretty sure you've listened it a few times and you've seen the kind of brothers that's on here. We are awake, man, and there's a lot of other people who are awake too, so it's more so about getting with them, man, and partnering with them at the end of the day. But last words, man. Deshaun, what do you got, man, as far as last words, bro?
Man, listen, I said it earlier in the podcast. Don't take your foot off the gas. Continue to collaborate with each other. Continue to do things together, unify. Listen to these nuggets that we drop in on here. Adhere to them. Collaborate with people that say, "Yo, what y'all think? You trying to look for a house? I'm trying to look for a house. What if we go to the same county? What if we buy a crib on the same block? What if we collaborate and get a family complex?" 'Cause I don't think we can do it separate. That's my headline, man.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do it separate. We got to do this together. We got to collaborate our resources together and keep our foot on their necks. I'm out.
Appreciate it, bro. Kenny, go ahead, man.
Like we've mentioned a couple of times already, I just encourage people to dig deeper when it comes to what we need, what we want, and how we get it. And it has to be void of dependence on somebody else. We have to figure out within the way things are how to get the things that we need on our own. As the longer we continue to depend on those who we allow to actually give us something, the longer they essentially stay in power.
Mm.
So let's just dig deeper, yo.
Oh, man. Well, appreciate y'all fellas, man, for being on once again. This has been good, man. This has been good, and like you said, and both of y'all said, we gonna keep this thing rolling. We keeping this podcast rolling, man. We got more episodes coming, more deep content for y'all, and man, I appreciate everybody who listens, and let's just continue to keep moving forward, y'all. So, God bless everybody. Appreciate y'all listening.
Peace.
And peace. Thanks a lot.